Oh, today, the problems with feminism and the problems with the culture war in general. Because I assume there's going to be a lot of people who are probably more on the anti-SJW side, and this video is also equally directed at many of you, though the focus is obviously going to be feminism and my criticisms thereof. I do want to point out some of the issues I take with the entirety of the culture war as it pertains to, like, intersectional feminists, then you've got like Gamergate, Comicsgate, now like Animegate or whatever. We're going to talk about all this stuff, right? So first, I want to talk about the problems of feminism, and some of these same problems affect the anti-SJW side as well. The other day, Taylor Lorenz tweeted this image from John Mayer, and she put, John Mayer, oh no, what did he do? Well, apparently on Snapchat, he said, ask me a question. Someone said, what's your take on feminism? And John Mayer, whatever, he responded with, my take is less about feminism and more about the issue of nomenclature, specifically how the reductiveness of language can turn people off from noble and vital causes. If you ask people if they support ensuring equal rights for women in all aspects of their lives, they would very likely say yes. That's a fact. It's true. You ask people that. Change that question to, are you a feminist? And the answer instantly becomes more complicated. That's because a single phrase is much more susceptible to being co-opted than the actual ideal it attempts to represent. This is interchangeable with every hashtag in the past several years. I support equal rights for women in all arenas. That's only a few words more than I'm a feminist, and possibly more salient and unarguable. And the response from Taylor was, John Mayer, and a facepalm. And this is the beginning of one of the problems with feminism. There are a lot of problems with this idea of feminism. First of all, if we're talking about equality for women in all aspects of life, yes, I agree, and I think like the number is overwhelmingly in agreement. Individual rights. I'm a staunch supporter of the individual. Then we start getting into intersectional feminism. When you want to talk about equal rights beyond just women, and you want to talk about minorities, absolutely, most people are going to agree, yes, equal rights for everybody. However, feminism starts to become something different because of the people it's associated with. Okay, so you've got a lot of high-profile people who claim to be feminists and fly the feminist banner, and feminists rally behind them. But some of these people are absolutely disgusting. And because of that, people will associate the worst of these individuals with feminism. If you were to ask the average person, like, I bet if I went to any one of my friends and just, because they're not culture war people, they have no idea about any of this stuff. We live in a really weird world. I hope you all realize that. We're in like this crazy bubble. Unfortunately, most politics and everything occurs in this bubble, but most of the normies, and I'm using that word unironically, can't do anything about it. I'll ask them if they're a feminist, and they'll be like, yeah, sure. And I'll ask them what it means, and they'll be like, oh, it means like equal rights for women. Okay. But now, feminist typically means one aspect of the social justice culture war. And you see responses like this. Okay, what John Mayer said is 100% correct. If I go to a random group of people, actually, I told this to Lacey Green around the time like I first met her. She asked me if I was a feminist, and I said, no, I would never align myself like that. And she asked me why. And I said, look, what I want to do is I want to bridge the divide. I want to bring people together and solve these problems and recognize that we're not going to agree, and we very well may hate each other, but we can live together. And so the first thing you need to realize is that if people take issue with the idea of feminism, not what feminism actually is, but this idea of it, if you approach them and say, hi, I'm your enemy, let's have a conversation, they're going to immediately put up a wall and be defensive and say, I don't trust you. But if you say, listen, I'm not going to align with any of these groups, I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to present some ideas maybe you've never been exposed to, they'll say, okay, I accept this concept. Unfortunately, one of the other issues with this idea of feminism is that many people associated with what we refer to as the regressive left, I want to separate the regressive left from feminism because they technically mean different things. The regressive left typically refers to the anti-free speech, the more cult-like behaviors of the far left, which many people within feminism will rally with, and it's problematic. It's also the same is true for the anti-SJWs. You will see white identitarians waving the Kek flag, okay? Sargon of Akkad, who helped popularize, I don't know if he's like the main dude who popularized Kekistan and all that stuff, but it was described to me that Kekistan was supposed to be sort of a tongue-in-cheek mockery of these identitarians, making up a fake ethnicity and waving a fake flag. But now you actually have identitarians on the right who embrace it simply because it's used against the left. So you have to recognize that both factions have extremist weirdos that kind of sully everything. I happen to lean more towards, more, I would say if I was going to position myself in terms of tribe, I'm probably much closer to the anti-SJW types simply because they oppose identitarianism for the most part. Fully recognizing that, look, I'm never going to wear a kek pin or a kek flag or anything like that because it is embraced by identitarians. And if you, like, I don't care what people do, you do your thing so long as you, abide by certain principles that we hold dear in Western society, like individual rights and liberties and things to that effect. But I do feel that when it comes to the mainstream left, they're absolutely willing to embrace some of these anti-speech issues. So I want to show you this story of my response to Taylor Lorenz and her ugh at John Mayer. My response was, by all means disagree, but know that using the word immediately signals to half the country that you are an other. Words mean different things to different people. For example, racism has different meanings on the left and the right. The point I'm trying to make is, there are people on the right and within anti-identitarian circles who view feminism as a supremacy movement. This is true, that women are fighting for special rights. They're not, the argument is, how many feminists do you see arguing for the right to work in sewers? How many feminists do you see arguing for the right to be garbage people? Political correctness right there, if you noticed. But there are some feminists who do, absolutely. But how many, look, there was a men's march in Australia. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know that Antifa showed up chanting like Nazi go home. And how do you reconcile this call for equality when people who are advocating for, people who are marching for men's issues, like men commit suicide way more, men are dropping out of colleges at alarming rates. These are things that we should be alarmed about. But Antifa, intersectional feminists, and the regressive left protest that. Okay, that's not equality. And that's an argument put forth by people who view feminism as a supremacy movement. There are a lot of issues in which women are not equal. Some of these happen to be myths, like the gender wage gap is, there's a wide range of issues as to why the gender wage gap is not true, but there are still issues peripheral to this idea of the gender wage gap, right? So women don't negotiate relative to men, and women take time off to be mothers. It's just like a biological thing that does penalize women. So there are issues there. However, there are myths circulating like people are just sexist against women and don't pay them as much, and that's only a very tiny aspect of what's actually going on. When you look at and when you take this into consideration, there's a lot of distrust immediately to someone who would identify as feminist. So the point I'm trying to bring up is, if you want to convey the ideas that you hold dear to the other half of the country, because we're trying to have a democratic society, then you probably shouldn't put yourself in a camp that makes the other side fearful. I would never go to, I would never go to one faction claiming to be the other, regardless if it's feminist or anti-feminist. I have no problem saying I'm a liberal, and I've seen conservatives recoil in horror when I say that, and I know full well what that means. But I always say, look, I'm a liberal, but I agree with free speech and free expression. And then I had a guy tell me just a couple days ago, he goes, oh, okay, so you're a tolerant liberal, so what, they basically call you a conservative then, right? And I laughed because I'm like, yeah, spot on. It's not true. Liberal in this country refers to like social liberal left-leaning politics, and that's where I align. So I want to show you what happened when I said this, okay? I said, words mean different things to different people. For example, racism has different meanings, and this woman responded, what do you think you're doing right now? I said, it seems that the left views anyone who doesn't fall in line as an other. Opposing feminism would signal being an other, but now even trying to bridge the divide is a sin. And here's where it goes. They said, yeah, but you didn't answer my question, bro, and then said I'm actually embarrassed for you. Immediately, this is an attack, okay? You might claim it's not really an attack, but no, look, from an emotional standpoint, from trying to understand how people behave, this person, with all of my good intentions and my look, I said nothing mean. I was just simply, trying to enter the conversation. Immediately said they were embarrassed for me and started becoming defensive and attacking me. I did not say I was an other to feminism. I didn't say I opposed it. I simply said some people don't view it that way, and that's about it. And because I don't immediately just agree with them, I'm the other. And this is another reason why I tend to align not with the left in terms of, I don't want to, I use the left in quotes because obviously my politics are left-leaning on the economic scale and the social scale, but this is tribalistic, weird behavior, okay? I don't align with that because I'm trying to have an honest conversation. And immediately this person is coming at me because I don't just agree with dogma. Okay, that's not okay, right? I said, what I think I'm doing is trying to share a perspective that can benefit those seeking to promote their ideology. And I'm going to click this because someone said, what perspective are you trying to, I don't know if that's exactly, okay, we'll follow this chain because it kind of diverges, but I want to focus on this one woman who approached me sort of. What perspective are you trying to share that can benefit those seeking to promote their ideology? And I said, empathy for others. Being mean to people isn't effective. And they said, okay, let me write that tip down for me to remember. I don't deserve my full human rights unless I'm nice to people all the time. Gotta smile while the boot is on my neck. Thanks, Tim. To which I responded, you're scary and make me feel bad. I can only assume you must be a bad person and you enjoy being mean. So this is where the thread forked. She said, really, you think that's what you're doing? You don't think John Mayer already covered it, or that we haven't heard it 1,000 times before? Or maybe it's no freaking business of yours what we call ourselves because feminism isn't about you, dude, LOLOL. By trying to simply engage and explain that different people feel different ways about things, and what I'm trying to convey here is, as I mentioned, empathy for others. That other people might be alarmed, scared, or defensive by the things you do, and you should account for how other people feel when you communicate, resulted in me being insulted, derided, and this snark, and I said, you're a really mean person. Mean people like you make it hard to stop the hate. And unironically, I'm not mean, this person said. I'm tired of having to explain this to clueless men over and over and over again. I want you guys to listen. You keep yammering, completely missing the point of equality down to the most basic level. Maybe use it as a lesson, dude. And I said, you're being mean and I don't know why. This thread goes on. Because I wasn't actually engaging this person on a political level. I never was. I never said I opposed feminism. I never said they were wrong. I simply said, I don't understand why you're being mean to me. And they continued by being very mean to me. And this is the problem that affects all sides. I can look at responses to like High Guardian Spice, okay? I've seen the comments from, I made a video where, I basically said, look, Crunchyroll, this anime service, made a show that's like a Cal Arts Cartoon Network-y kind of show that's 100% female writing staff and stuff like that. And I said, look, I'm not going to rag on any of them. I'm going to tell them straight up if they ask me. I'm like, hey, that's really cool that you guys got a show. Congratulations. I hope it works out and people who like the show are attracted to it and that works for you. And I'm just not going to pay for it. It's not what I'm into, right? I like Full Metal Alchemist and Boruto and Naruto. And as someone mentioned the name of the show, I forgot, Black Clover, which I have only watched the first 5 episodes because Crunchyroll is a crappy service. But I canceled Crunchyroll not necessarily because of the show and its politics. I canceled it because I don't like the idea of people entering the culture war on purpose. And that's what they did. They made a trailer that highlighted diversity and these things. And I'm like, look, I don't care if you do it, right? I'm going to leave when you do because I know what's about to happen. Fighting is going to break out, and I don't watch cartoons. I don't watch a show where a dude claps his hands and turns his metal arm into a sword because I want to deal with this kind of politics. I want to just sit there eating my popcorn and being entertained by a story. So when they enter the fray, I'm out. But I can see the comments. I can see the people, the guy from Comicsgate, he did a segment where I believe he apologized because he was being a dick, right? I was on a panel with Sargon, and this was in New York. It was actually Sargon's event, and the liberal guy, this guy Carlos, mentioned that mansplaining is just meant to trigger you. It's not actually meant to advance the conversation. It's just meant to get a rise out of someone. And name-calling isn't, a good thing to do. And Sargon agreed, and I said, but Sargon, you called this dude, Nicholas Matt, a soy boy. Why would you do that? So, look, in a podcast, I mentioned that Sargon was kind of a dick, and a bunch of people were like, why are you, shit-talking Sargon? And I'm like, listen, Sargon's a big boy who understands criticism, and that's kind of why I lean more in favor of people, that kind of side of the culture war than these people, because when you look at how they react to me saying, hey, maybe you should consider this, I immediately get insulted and attacked and snarked at, and assumptions are made about me. And when I say to Sargon, like, I think you're being mean in a lot of instances, he goes, yeah, I understand. And he doesn't hate me for it. He doesn't attack me for it. He recognizes the criticism, and we're able to get along just fine. And not only that, the same thing can go with conservatives. I can sit down with my conservative, I got into a heated argument about pro-life versus pro-choice, and that's really it. We got into an argument, and then we end up eating a slice of pizza and carrying on, trying to figure out how we can be friends and live together knowing that we disagree. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the strength of our arguments and the voting bloc. But what I can say is, I think this is more true in the past. I think Sargon, for the most part, I've been watching his videos, and he's much nicer. But, you know, he has older videos that I've seen where he just kind of laughs at people and he's snarky. And that is divisive and doesn't help mend any of these problems. With High Guardian Spice, I feel like a lot of people immediately, became defensive and went into culture warrior mode. And I disagree with that. Like I said, my response is going to be, hey, that's really cool that, you guys got a thing. Congratulations. I'll be over here. I've got no beef. You do your thing. Like, that's cool. And I feel like that's the right approach because people weaponize the outrage. If you go to them and get angry, I think somebody commented on my video that I didn't understand because standing by and doing nothing doesn't stop them from continuing this push. That even when Marvel comic sales are down, when game sales are down, they continue trying to do it. And I'm like, then you lose. Like, seriously, I mean, focus on what you want. And I can't, rollerblading. Well, I'll just pick a random thing. Rollerblading's not popular anymore. They don't make money. It happens. There's not a big enough community to sustain this. But what I can say is the rollerblading community didn't go out and start attacking people and insulting people for not rollerblading. It just kind of died out. It's still popular in other parts of the world, not so much here. And that might happen to what you love. And it is what it is. But by all means, fight for what you care about. The only thing I'm trying to say is one of the biggest problems that everybody has in the culture war is being mean. That's it. Somebody comment here, imagine including your career advice in your bio and worrying about people being mean to you. Again, like the Twitter is a hellscape of assholes and arrogance. And certainly there are points where I contribute to that, but I try to do my best not to. And I try not to, I don't really ever insult people or attack people. I typically go for the Socratic method. And I think that's where, I try to just be relatively balanced. But I guess I wanted to highlight this thread for one reason. This is a good example of what the culture war really is and why I would never call myself a feminist and one of the biggest problems with feminism. And you know what? There's going to be people like this person, I don't know who she is, who are going to attack me and say that I'm sexist then and a racist or whatever, or a bigot. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care because you have no empathy for other people. If you're willing to generalize an entire group of people, if you're willing to insult people, if you're not willing to recognize that not everyone knows what you know, then you are just a mean person. And I don't care what you believe because I don't have anything to do with your negativity and your nastiness. Why did Taylor Lorenz have to say ugh to John Mayer and a facepalm? That's just mean. You know what I would have put? I would have taken the screenshot and said, I disagree, John Mayer, and here's what I think. I'm not perfect because you can probably pull up a bunch of examples of me being a dick, certainly. But I try. And I can only, the reason I say that is because of course I'm not perfect. Of course I've probably done similar things. But I try to be moderate and balanced when I approach these situations because I understand Taylor Lorenz, who I have absolutely no problem with, she's probably viewing feminism in the positive light, and she's only probably exposed to very good things about it and doesn't understand the criticism of it. So for me to go to her and say, oh, you feminists are all the same, John Mayer's good, and no, that's not going to be effective. So I tried to make something that was a constructive comment, and I got accused of mansplaining and other nonsense. It is what it is. But so long as people behave this way, so long as the response to these kinds of ideas is going to be negative attitudes and general mean behavior, you're never going to win. The same is true for either side. And the only thing that's really going to work out, so long as policy doesn't change, is confidence of the people, right? The market isn't necessarily the end point. It's really just about personal confidence. I guess to an extent you can't ignore it, but maybe just don't give it energy. Maybe don't prop it up and don't be the boogeyman they're looking for. Imagine if everyone responded to, Battlefield 5 with, that's a really cool game, guys, so awesome. I just want to let you know I'm not going to buy it. And I look forward to the next game in your series. Well, there you go. Instead, we have a culture war conflict. And you know what? That's just my opinion. Because maybe the conflict over Battlefield 5 worked out. Pre-order sales are down. Maybe the hubbub and the press generated was effective for the people who are anti-social justice warriors, whatever. All I know is that I typically side with free expression and general market practices. And I think there are a lot of people who find themselves on the anti-side who are in a similar position. And the reason is, I want to watch my show where a dude claps his hands and turns his metal arm into a sword, and I don't care about the politics. And I think because politics seeps into these cultures, people get angry about it and say, leave it alone, let it function. And thus they get enlisted in, they enlist in the culture war. And it's a damn shame, but ultimately, look, I don't know what the right answer is. All I want to point out is you're never going to convince me to be on your side if you're mean and nasty. And that's exactly what they did. So there you go. There's me talking for 20 minutes about one of the problems of feminism and some other problems. So stick around. In about 10 more minutes, I'll have another video coming up.